I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I don't have.
That's funny on so many levels. So many levels. On one level, it's funny because Joe Biden doesn't have COVID-19 and Donald Trump does have COVID-19. At one point, it was even disclosed in the meetings, peer pressure and all. President Trump at times told staff wearing masks in meetings to get that thing off, an administration official said. Everyone knew that that Trump viewed masks as a sign of weakness. You were looked down upon when you walked by with a mask, said Olivia Troe, a top aide on the coronavirus task force. Think about that. Think about that. A member of the COVID-19 task force, the organization that was supposed to be cutting down on the amount of COVID-19 in the United States, understood that when you walked around with a mask on in front of the President of the United States, he considered it unmanly that you were trying to save your life. That's profound on so many ways, and not in a good way. This is epically, epically sad. The President of the United States gets to the point where he wrapped politics around what was an issue of science. And of course, reality does not care about your politics. Reality does not care one iota about what you need in regards to being healthy, being able to project, being able to say, hey, this is not a big deal. Hey, we're about to turn the corner. Hey, it's almost over. Hey, we're going to be in this place. Give me a tall doctor. Give me a tall doctor. I need oxygen. I need oxygen. Trump willfully, intentionally put people's lives at risk. Not just him and the people around him, the world, the country. Trump has been the biggest purveyor of disinformation in general. And at the end of the day, he's been trying to get people back to work for fiscal, economic interests. You must understand, the framing of Donald Trump's world was his idea. I can get in office. People don't have to like me. They just need to know that I'm the guy for the economy. Well, what happens when the economy hits the skids and 30 million people are out of a job and you have no idea how to deal with that? The public itself has been concerned about COVID-19 from the time it started to now, and that concern has only gone up. They may be sick of being in the house, but they don't necessarily want to catch the virus. And in terms of you doing your job, their expectation was that you were going to due diligence and attend to the issues of the virus. If that meant ensuring that people had $2,000, every 2 weeks, then do that. If that meant ensuring that people have health care, even if it's just Medicare for everyone with COVID-19, you even threw that out yourself. You quickly threw it away, but that was a damn good idea. And that would have usurped basically the Democratic Party. You would have moved to the left. Your party would have bellyached, but at the end of the day, you might have been able to make that work, even if you were playing faux opposition to your party. I'm making the point that you didn't have to keep the economy ticking along, sparkling well. You just need to keep everything whole, as much as whole as possibly. Yes, you're going to lose some people. Yes, a lot of people are going to get ill. But at the same token, it doesn't have to be where it is. And the other countries are a testament to that incompetence. And honestly, a warped point of view that turns something that was an issue of flat fact science into an issue of politics. And by the way, he's doing it now. When he's at the desk writing and it's a blank piece of paper, that's optics. He wants to seem like he's okay. The doctors themselves, jittery, giving information out. At some points, even feel like they're misleading in regards to their statements. Why? All sorts of pressure are probably being applied upon them from the standpoint of him and his entourage. And even the ride around, hey, I'm doing okay, I'm doing okay. The editing out of a cough, that's sad. That didn't even look good. I mean, you're the White House and you can't even do that right. It's like he's talking, and you just get that part. And it's like, whoa, what's wrong with this video? Was he trying to cough? People know he has COVID. Why are you pretending not? Why? Because the optics of it. It's one thing to know. It's another thing to see him cough. There's a difference between knowing you're going to get a needle stick and getting a needle stick. In Donald Trump's case, he does not want to appear weak. And so he wants to get out the hospital as soon as possible. He wants to get, these things. If there could be medical facilities at the West Wing where he can court himself, he'll do that. I'm making the point that he has taken a certain persona the entire time this has been taking place. And now he gets hit with it. God got involved. Good. But, and I've said before, I want it to hurt. This is not saying I want him to die or anything. That's not where I'm going. But do I want it to be difficult? Yes. Do I want him to feel it? Yes. Is this a bit of me being petty Betty? You can call it petty Betty. You can call it revenge. You can call it justice. You can call it whatever you want. I'm calling it from the standpoint of Donald Trump is responsible. Do you realize even the drug cocktail? There's no hydroxychloroquine in that drug cocktail. Where's your hydroxychloroquine, Trump? I thought you were taking it. So did it not work in protecting you, or is it not working in regards to somebody applying it to you? But that's the nonsense that he had been pushing for so long, making that part of a discussion when it really shouldn't have been. The cocktail that Trump has been giving gets across more severity of a condition, not less of a severe condition, unless the doctors just threw everything at him. He's president of the United States, hit him with everything. He's a 74-year-old man, hit him with everything. He's obese, hit him with a cocktail. So they got him on a bunch of experimental drugs and then, basic stuff. Donald Trump and the perspective that he has been given throughout this country has given people misinformation. And you have a bunch of right-wingers, chunk, not the majority, but a chunk, that believes what he's peddling. And he gets it. Now, I've met these people, and these people are aggravating because reality doesn't apply. And their reality where they think, I cannot wear a mask and just talk to people because I don't believe this stuff. It's like passing syphilis to people, and the guy who's doing it is pretending as if syphilis doesn't exist. It's utterly ludicrous. These people are spreaders in and of themselves by definition. How could they not be if they're walking around without masks, if they believe that's nonsense that Trump is putting out and talking to people? These are the people that are pushing people to the hospitals, that are exposing nurses and doctors in measures that don't necessarily need to be exposed. If mask was a thing that we had acted within the first few months, a lot of this would not come to pass. In the beginning, there was an issue with amount. The president of the United States, who knew back in February that this was going to be an issue, did not take the initiative to tell and force companies to make masks. Wasn't a priority. And so instead of him going out telling the public, not a big deal, not a big deal, not a big deal, when he was getting information, I've said this for months, from the World Health Organization, because we were a large donor to that. And so we got information from that. We had people there. And they were telling him how bad it was and how bad it was in China and what was coming. And he downplayed it, did not use the mechanisms of the government to go into play in order to get supplies that were necessary. Instead, we had hospitals fighting for supplies. We had local state governments with cops trying to protect or misdirect in order to keep and maintain their supplies so the federal government wouldn't swoop down and steal it. Paying more for ventilators than what was necessary. I mean, it was chaos. Even sending these kids back to school. All of these things were from a president that cared less about the human life and cared more about his political objectives. I want to look strong. I don't want to, I want to get the economy back up and running. I want to do this and that. But at the end of the day, none of it worked. And then gets COVID to boot. Yeah, there's incompetence. And then there's Donald Trump. Take a look at this one.
He famously told a voter, I want you to look in my eyes when he's not wearing the mask, because I've never seen a man that liked a mask. Look, I'm all for it. We have a big weekend, distance on the weekend and all of that stuff, and wear your mask when you're close together in particular, and wash your hands, all those things. We have Labor Day weekend coming up. But did you ever see a man that likes a mask as much as him? And then he makes a speech, and he always has it, not always, but a lot of times he has it hanging down, because you know what? It gives him a feeling of security. If I were a psychiatrist, right? No, I'd say this guy's got some big issues. Hanging down. Hanging down. Congressman, give me your mask. I want to have it hanging from my ear. I don't want to touch your damn mask.
This is stand-up. It's actually pretty damn funny, believe it or not. And he's probably freestyling. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this is off the top of his head, where he's just kind of going through the crowd, getting the energy of the crowd, and just kind of hamming it up. But notice, manly. I've never seen a man that has worn a mask that much. Have you seen a woman that's enjoy wearing a mask that much? Yeah. So, in his standpoint, this is not a manly exercise. You need to be stronger than that. Your will itself needs to be enough to keep away the COVID virus. Will and, 1,000 workers under your thing as president, under your tenure as president, who can clean the buildings and ensure that people are safe and everything else. Look, the reason why I say, and I'm going to get to polling in a moment, but God got involved. Look at this for a moment. They didn't care. If you think back over the entirety of Trump's presidency, human beings mattered less than his political objectives. Whether it was ICE agents rounding up people, you have kids who didn't even know where their mommy and daddy was at one point. You have, in some cases, kids being separated at the border. The idea being to make it harsh. And by the way, this was also Obama's policy. It would have been Hillary Clinton's policy to make the border harsh, with the notion that kids and people won't come back. The idea, or the problem, is that those people are leaving war zones, and unless you're going to go even beyond what Trump is doing, you're still going to have this situation where people may be coming to the border if it's a hellish environment. A lot of those hellish environments we helped create. They didn't care about life. Even if it was the airline thing, we had all of these workers being furloughed without any cash because of his political objectives of building the wall. He did not care about human life. Why would you believe he would care about yours? That's the catch. Over 200,000 dead Americans. This is not us starving people abroad or bombing people abroad. This is of incompetence. Bombing, if you want to call it that. But ultimately, you had a White House that was unempathetic, didn't care. Take a look at this. This is the Rose Garden, where they were bringing in Burnett. That's Mike Lee. Mike Lee is infected. That's Mike Lee without a mask. Infected Mike Lee. Let's go back. Oh, he's holding his mask in his hand. Ain't that nice? He's holding his mask in his hand because it is well known, very well known, that holding a mask in your hand is where it's most effective. Well, Mike Lee is infected. So that didn't work. Oh, there's another person. Oh, I'm hugging somebody. Yes. I'm hugging everybody. I'm Mike Lee. I'm infected Mike Lee. Oh, there's Chris Christie. He's also infected. And as you can see, he's Max Portly. He's the epitome of maximum portliness. We're calling him chubby. We're saying Chris Christie is chubby. And that is not an advantage for COVID-19. In fact, Chris Christie looks like he could even have diabetes. I'm appraising this from a distance. I'm not a doctor. But that looks like a man that could have medical conditions. Chris Christie has checked himself into the hospital. This is the same man that said, hey, some people got to die. Some people got to die. We got to get back to work. Some people got to die. We can't stop the American life. There is no such thing as American life. This is relative, just like anything else was relative. Slavery was an American life. Jim Crow was an American life. All of these things were American lives. American life is what American life needs to be for whatever particular environment that confronts us. If that life needs to change, then it changes. But there is no thing, there's no absolute in that. And to be honest, it's not a real thing in and of itself any more than any other type of life. You do what you need to do and you live. You live. Change is absolute. He's infected. No mask. He's not even holding a mask. Did Mike Glee not tell him that holding onto a mask would at the very least offer some level of protection that not holding onto the mask will? Huh? But he's infected. He's infected. Now, here's the catch. To put this in perspective, look at all of these people without masks on. Fuck that mask. Donald Trump thinks he's unmanly, and we're fucking invincible. When you look at the number of people who were infected, Trump, that person's infected, that guy's 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 infected. All of those people at the Rose Garden ended up being infected. Hope Hicks, senior counselor to President Trump, U.S. Senator Mike Lee, that was the one that was hugging everybody. He couldn't help hugging people, love hugging people. Senator Tom Tills, Republican from North Carolina, Kellyanne Conway, former senior White House counselor, Bill Stepien, Trump's campaign manager, Chris Christie, former New Jersey governor, Nicholas Luna, assistant to President Trump, and John Jenkins, president of the University of Notre Dame. 3 journalists from the White House Press Corps, according to the White House Correspondents Association, a White House press staffer, according to the Correspondents Association. And we also have 2 of Kellyanne Conway's deputies in the press shop now have tested positive for COVID-19 as well. Super spreader. Now, I'm not saying it's coming from Trump, but I'm saying it's coming from Trump. What I mean by that is whether or not Trump was the individual that went to each and every person spreading it or not, it came from the top, from the perspective that other people started crowing around the boss. His will was being done. Whether it was him telling people or them just knowing that this was something that was frowned upon. And at that party, in and of itself, we have no idea when Trump got it. It's very possible that many of them could have had it at that moment, smoothing it up. Everybody at the press corps is going to have to be quarantined. Not to mention everybody who Trump came in contact with over the past X number of time frames. Like, this is a clusterfuck. CNN called the White House to get some kind of confirmation. They said, contact the press campaign guy. They said, we'd like to do that, but that guy has COVID-19 also, and that guy is ill and not working. Can you say clusterfuck? Let's go to some polling. Is there sympathy for Trump in this? Good question. Is there sympathy? Is there outpouring of support? The president is ill. The president of the free world is ill. Who's going to lead us? Who's going to lead us? Somebody said. Believe it or not, the American public, not so much. There's no situation where I would have known the president to get ill and the public didn't give a shit. Here's the situation. Donald Trump gets ill, may drop dead, and yet the American public is basically saying 50%. It's more than 50, but it's like 50 point something percent. But basically, yeah, he should have been better. He should have did better. It's infinitely foreseeable that he was going to get caught. Based on top, let's start at the top first. 51% were backing Biden, 41% are voting for Trump. 4% were undecided. Now, the reason why I'm giving that number first is because basically this number is unchanged. Biden has gained, I think, like 2 points. But Yeah, Biden's 10-point edge over Trump is 1 to 2 points higher than his lead posted over the past several weeks. So basically, unchanged. The race is like a fixed thing. People say they're pretty clear. The thing is with Trump, people are always clear on Trump. They know if they hate him or they love him. There doesn't seem to be an in-between on that. So for Trump, he did not accomplish whatever he was trying to accomplish at the debate, meaning he might have accomplished it in a very specific sense. But like I said, in the overall sense, no, that's not what is going to be the thing that wedges votes away from Joe Biden on this front. People are terrified of him. That's not the issue. Joe Biden doesn't have to offer anything in that sense. Those people are just going to be desperate. Most Americans continue to be deeply worried about the virus, and the poll found that 65% of the country, 9 in 10 Democrats, 90% of Democrats, and 50% of Republicans agreed that if President Trump had taken the coronavirus more seriously, he probably would not have been infected. Not just that, America. 200,000 people dead. What about them? What about them? Do you not care about them, America? I understand that he might have been that way, but I am making the point that in the same way he was cavalier with his own health, manliness, he was also not cavalier. He wasn't being cavalier. I'm sorry. He was also being cavalier with America's well-being. And it went down the line. Would, yay or nay, would his supporters have balked at wearing a mask if Trump didn't balk at wearing a mask? Probably not. Would you have some that would have been bitching and moaning? Yes. But if Trump would have been like, yeah, I'm wearing this mask, we're trying to open businesses faster, they would have accepted it, just like they accepted, when he was on the campaign trail, moving to the right, moving to the left on some of that stuff, especially on war policy and whatnot. They were like, yeah, fair enough. He was like $10 minimum wage. Yeah, great. He blew away this myth that the Republicans wanted tax cuts and all this other nonsense. There were other reasons that they were backing that party. All right, I'll end this here. Like, share, and of course, subscribe. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back in a few.